Chase Jones.
Well, those winds definitely picked up around lunch, and it was just too dry out there to see some of that morning dew. But around lunchtime, that dust storm picked up, and you saw how much it reduced visibility. And we're going to be holding on to these windy conditions well into the evening. And by tomorrow, you're going to feel that cold air down about 20 degrees into those 50s. Now, we're getting a good look at the temperatures over the last 24 hours. Holding on to a lot of heat last night, down to the mid-40. Then we made a good, 30, if not 28-degree run up into those 70s. Nailed the daytime high at 73 degrees. And we're already cooling off while we still see this dust storm make its way in. It's going to be a pretty awful Friday night, so I owe you guys a good Friday night. And the next one coming up by next week could be in those 60s after we get through this cold weather. 69 in San Angelo, everybody else in those mid-70s. And we're looking across the entire region as we see shades of yellow finally pushing their way in. 68 degrees up there in Sterling City, 72 down there in Junction, 4 degrees across the entire Concho Valley. Despite seeing some of those high winds, it is pretty warm out there. Doesn't really feel like it. And by tonight, it's going to be down near those 40s. So we're going to be right around that freezing level. Dew points are down there in those 20s, but the lower you go in elevation, you see them push up into those 40s, while the humidity indices are in those teens, all the way up into those 30s. So we might still see a pretty dry night tonight before we see some of that cold weather by tomorrow. Moisture tracker is starting to show you a pretty interesting storming developing. A lot of model data showing us some pretty interesting forecasts for this cold air. This is the instability we have our eye on. It's going to move off towards the east and get a little more severe. But this cold weather is really going to sink in across the entire United States. Now, it's going to span everywhere from the west coast all the way to the east coast. And that pushes all the way into Martin Luther King Day. And you heard about some of those inauguration day sort of changes. That's due to this weather. It's going to be all the way from D.C. all the way here into the Concho Valley. When we talk about the upper level pattern, keep your eye off the west coast. Now, these cutoff lows will continue to join this monster wave of cold air, and it's going to push waves and waves through next week. It's going to keep us down there in those 30s, and then we're going to warm right back up into those 60s when you see some of that ridging there by Friday. But off the west coast, about 3 cutoff lows have developed. So these are pockets of cold air that keep dropping down the west coast as the majority of that cold air moves around the Rocky Mountains and then down around the Great Plains into the Concho Valley. Now, we've seen this all week long, if not last week, and next week's looking pretty probable as well. When we look at the water vapor imagery, we're getting a better idea of the circulation of the storm moving off towards the east. There's our high clouds. There's our strong winds. Then off the west coast, here comes that sinking cold air sinking pocket of cold air, and it's going to join the next cutoff low off the west coast, and it's going to continue to lift this moisture across the Sierra Madres and push it into the Concho Valley. But those high winds really going to clear things up by tomorrow. Severe weather outlook has finally changed. We're seeing it right around the Gulf Coast region, targeting parts of Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. And as we make our way into tonight, a good opportunity for some heavy rain, but I don't think anything too severe. When we take you down to the surface, there's our cold air sinking in from the north. There's our wind advisories, and there goes our storm pushing off towards the east, setting up around that severe weather region. When we take you down to Texas, we're just going to keep our eye on this weather as it continues to push off towards the east. But we look up towards the north, here comes that cold sinking air that's going to push us down about 40 degrees by Monday, and then we're going to stay there for a couple days before we warm back up, and we're on the lookout for some of this higher precip as we make our way into Monday. Of course, Monday night looking like a good opportunity for some light ice before things immediately melt. High winds going to be out of the north for the next couple hours into tomorrow. Then by tomorrow morning, things settle down, and they're going to be around 15 to 20 miles per hour. So we're still holding on to a little bit of those windy conditions. That includes tonight as we get down into those 40s, those 30s. So we're going to drop about 40 degrees. So bundle up if you have to go outside. Those wind advisories will be in effect. And tomorrow, a good run at those 50s, but it's going to be cold out there. You know it's going to be that way. You're going to feel it, and then we're going to get right back down near those freezing levels. Of course, it'll be the weekend, so Stephen takes a closer look at this area. By Monday, we're looking at Martin Luther King Day. Just stay inside. It's going to be pretty chilly. As we make our way into Tuesday, Wednesday, on the warm-up, we push up into those 50s. By next Friday, into those 60s, while those overnight lows go from those 20s all the way up into those 30s. Stay tuned. One more break. You're watching KSAN News.